Hi guys, yesterday I started the challenge, 6 day challenge of sitting with yourself for 2 hours straight. And so today was day two, and it was not as formal as it was yesterday because as I started to relax, things started to happen. So I noticed today that I was actually feeling incredibly tired, which is a good thing. Like it's I have vacation now. It's a result of being in survival mode for incredibly long. And so what happened was, I was going and in the couch, and I just started laying there. I still had a few to dos this morning, so I was doing them, one by one, and I started to notice like, oh, I'm feeling really tired, and I decided, well, you know, once I finish my little list, I'm not gonna do this and that. I wanted to go to the gym, and I just felt that I should not go today. And yeah, I put myself in the couch, and I actually laid down, and my girlfriend was close to me, and she was like, working on the computer, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna lie down, and I felt that my body was starting to yawn very, very, very deeply, very, very loudly, also. Like many, many yawns, like some 6, 7 of those very, very deep and loud yawns. And I hadn't had those in months. I don't know exactly how long. And then it was like 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And yeah, I was just starting to like fall asleep a little bit, and then at some point, I was comfortable enough to actually allow myself to fall asleep, which is a crazy thing. Like, I basically have vacation right now. I'm in my own house. I'm safe, but in the last years, and actually even when I was doing spiritual service in India, I had to be available, or at least I thought I had to be available every moment of the day. Basically, it's just so crazy, and it completely wrecks your nervous system. And I've basically become unable to rest, and also, when going to sleep, my my sleep was not very restful, or has not been restful for a very long time. And so once you start to relax, it's pretty scary because I actually wanted to do the formal 2 hour sitting today as well, but I ended up sleeping on the couch for like 3 hours or something, and then it was getting quite late. And then there were a few things around the house. It's been very, very dry here, and I saw that some flowers were going to die if they wouldn't get water, so I had to water them, and it took quite a long time. And so I didn't do the formal sitting, but I did do the formal or the informal lying down in the couch. And yeah, I mean, maybe many of you have the same experience, that for months or years, or maybe even decades, hopefully not decades, you haven't been able to actually rest and let go and allow yourself to fall asleep. I was always like afraid, like for example, that I would fall asleep, let's say at 8 or 9 in the evening, and that I wouldn't wake up the next day and miss a meeting or something. I was always afraid of that, and I just was completely unable to just rest and just like actually for many months I've been feeling like if I just lie down basically any moment of the day I would just fall asleep and I mean I have the feeling that I would just be sleeping for like 15 hours and miss this and that. And so yeah, I just didn't feel safe to rest and didn't feel safe to fall asleep. But I think yesterday having practiced, you know, those 2 hours of just sitting with myself for 2 hours, straight, I think that some level of relaxation was starting to come to the surface. And that led to today for the first time in I don't know how long. I think it was in a year because in a year ago I was solo in Germany, like in a small cabin for I mean it was not really a cabin, but below like a very small stone house for 6 days, just alone by myself in the mountains. Because I felt I needed to like reset, and I did get a reset then, but it was a little bit short. Um, but now it's again a little bit like that, like some 6 7 days. It's not that long, but it's something to try and reset my nervous system a little bit. But so yeah, I felt some relaxation, and I also felt, sometimes I was waking up a little bit. Sometimes I was, being asleep for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, like some light but still very restful sleep. I started to notice that there was tension from the back, tension from the torso being released, and especially my heart region feeling way less tense. Not fully open, but I felt some opening happening, and that felt very good. And yeah, so just this noticing of like, oh God, I am incredibly tired and tense and stressed and have been for so long. And by lying there on the couch, it was starting to release. And the build up fatigue was starting to come up and also being released a little bit, but it's so much that's been building up over so long. It's just crazy. And then also my sleep rhythm has been like terrible for years. And so today was the first time in many months that um, at 10 o'clock I felt like, oh, I'm ready to go to sleep. And I was laying in bed. Then, my girlfriend was a bit, she had a terrible toothache, so she couldn't really, fall asleep. And then, my uh, let's say that my sleep wave then was going away, and I came down to see if she was okay because she went down to go and get some medicine and go and sit up because the pain was worse when she was lying down, and the thing is that once I then went back to bed, I started doing a practice that I'm not actually sure if my spiritual master taught me or if I developed it based on what I was being taught. I don't know exactly, but the method that I was using was basically the no method, as I call it, which is, um, if you want to try and fall asleep or try and relax and get into your body, what you can do is every time when there's a thought coming up, which is leading you somewhere, you say no. And there's another thought, you say no. Another, you say no, and you really very actively try not to go with the thought. And I was doing that just like I started doing that like some 45 minutes ago or something. And what started to happen was that I actually started to get more deeply into my body. And what happened as a result was that tension was being released, but there was so much coming up, so much grief, so much pain, so much like heavy energy, honestly, um, and some old memories, I don't know, it's like my life for the last like 13 years has been 13 years ago. I had my first big accident, and then like 2.5 years ago, another big accident, and my life for the last 13 years has been such a crazy thing. I've been in survival mode most of the time, sadly. Even though there were some very very beautiful moments as well, but it was a it was incredibly tough. And what happened was that as there was so much grief and emotion coming up, those were then followed, or like, sometimes followed up by just memories of my childhood, where just completely different memories that had not surfaced for like 10 years or so, because there was just so much trauma going on in the last 10 years, like 13 years. It's basically been like a survival mode, a trauma living for like basically almost the whole time. It's crazy how it's been. And then somehow just like some 25 minutes ago or something, those memories started coming up of when I was a boy, and my father, he had like a small holiday house. And I was just remembering how hard the couch was, just like and the vivid color of the couch, like it was like some special type of blue. And like I remember hitting my head against, because it was actually like, was looking good, the couch, but it was incredibly uncomfortable. Like the back of the couch was basically just pure wood with a little bit of a small beautiful blue thing onto it. And I didn't we didn't come there, we didn't go there very often. And so I was always forgetting that when I was laying down on the couch and just like you know uh, what's the English words, like just like basically jumping into it, and I was always hitting my head. And it's yeah. So I think what I wanted to get to, because let's not make this too long, what I wanted to get to is that once you start sitting with yourself and not, you know, allow any stimulation, and also try and actively, now for me, in that couch, like letting go and maybe I wasn't actively feeling that much then, but I was actively trying to relax and trying to allow myself to rest, which might sound crazy, but for me, that's incredibly challenging. But I managed to do it, and managed to like rest for like 3 hours or something, and then doing that practice of like no, no, no in my bed for maybe some half an hour or how long it was. I don't know exactly, but what starts to happen is your nervous system starts to regulate itself, but then you gotta be prepared for what's gonna come up. It's a lot of stuff going up. It's really crazy. Like that's the thing that I felt is missing, and I tried um so many different spiritual and psychological. Or I think my let's see. Oh, my phone is almost dying, so I think I have to stop soon. But let's keep it short. So I tried so many different spiritual traditions and practices, and actually seriously, not it's not like I just tried them for a day or two. Like there were quite a few practices that I did for at least a few months, or sometimes a year or so, or even longer, even. But what I felt is that if you just focus on being present, or if you just focus on being very centered and very like mentally very strong and very like trying just always being high energy, like those things are very, very good, and I feel that they have their place in your spiritual practice. And I'm still there's one surrender practice by the guru named Maharishika, which I'm still doing, and I aim to continue doing it. But if you don't give any space to letting your nervous system heal, which I think is honestly comes down to processing emotions and processing energy in your aura, or whatever you want to call it, getting stuck emotions out of your body, and then getting tension out of your body. Like if you don't do that, I think at some point you're always going to get stuck. At some point there's always going to be, I mean, that's just my observation, my personal experience, also my observation in other people. Is it the ultimate truth? I don't know. Can you just like, I mean, there's these things like Joe Dispenza, like stepping into the new you, and I mean, I don't really know that much about Joe Dispenza, so I cannot really go in depth on what it is. I read a little bit on it. I watched quite a few videos on it, but I don't know enough about it. But just what I wanted to say is that yes, it is possible to step into high energy like instantly. Yes, that is possible. It is my experience that those things are true, that you can decide to step into high energy. I've experienced that so many times. That is true. But to say that then you would never have to look at your emotions, or karma, or whatever it is that you want to call it, like the things that you have to like go through or process or whatever it is, like I don't know if that is possible to do it without so I mean, I just don't know it, so that's why I go for a combined approach. um, so the surrender practice of Marishika is basically one where you can also step into that high energy, and you basically can connect to your center, which gives you that can give you that very strong and deep joy and strength and energy, spiritual high energy, but actually also physical energy. But I noticed in the spiritual community where we were, you know, living by that people there were actually not looking at the emotional, and I felt that kept them stuck, and I felt that was also creating some problems, not looking at the not trying to process emotions, and basically even though it was said, well, if you do the surrender practice, you can feel emotions more deeply, which I felt is true. But at some point, I think you just have to also sit with it and go through it. But that is just my experience. Like, maybe that's not true. Maybe that's not the ultimate truth. I don't know it. But if you go for the combined approach, and you also give quite a lot of space to processing the emotions, what I feel is, for me, for example, a person who has gone through a lot of trauma. I mean, I believe everyone has gone through trauma, but I think in my personal case, it's probably a bit more extreme than the average person, which is why I probably at a young age already have to do these things, because otherwise, I mean, I've already been doing quite a lot of things a few years back, luckily, because otherwise I would just not be able to function at all. Like, and there's many people like that they've been through that much trauma that they basically just cannot function in society. They cannot function. They're just, the trauma is just so strong, and I've come to a point where there's still, I mean, I still see quite a bit of influence of traumas on how I behave, but compared to a few years ago, it's way less. And my goal is, of course, to further and further reduce the impact, and further step into my strength. So I feel that combining feeling and processing with a practice that can, like this, put you into high energy is a very good approach. And but be aware that if you start giving yourself time to feel the emotions, oh god, it might be a very heavy thing. Even though, yesterday I said, well, if you actually just feel it, it can be quite pleasant. Yes, but if we start feeling emotions, and then memories start coming up linked to those emotions, and all kinds of other thoughts and emotions can be triggered, and that can be quite a thing. And realizations that I was basically ill from 15 to 24. Like, I never really lived the life of a teenager, or like a young 20-year-old, like going out like a normal healthy youngster. I never had that. For like most of those years of like going out partying, like I never had that. I mean, I went out a few times, but I was that sick that I could not enjoy it. So yeah, but let's stop it here. This was day 2, which was quite a day. It was not as formal as yesterday, but let's see what we do tomorrow. And yeah, just I want to encourage you to go through it. Like, to me, even though it was quite heavy, like the half hour of feeling all those things, it was really intense, but at the same time, it's like you get out of numbness, and you also start to feel lighter and freer. And yeah, it's even though, I mean, it's only the tip of the iceberg. Like, I don't know how much is gonna come up, but there's people saying that people that did this for years and years and years, that at some point you know, it's not like it takes years for you to like feel lighter. It's like every time that you do it, there's like some opening up. Even though then after that, there's more stuff coming up. Once your body feels that you're ready, once your nervous system feels that you're ready, more stuff comes up. But what you tend to notice is then there's other areas of your life that you know, just areas of your life at the beginning were like ruled by trauma, and then at some point they're not ruled by trauma anymore, at least a lot less. And then there's other areas coming up that are still ruled by trauma, and then you have to go through it. And then they're also being taken care of. Then there's other areas coming, and yeah, there's people like that. Like for example, there's an entrepreneur called Naval Ravikant, or Naval Ravikant, or however you want to say it. He says that he also does something similar of sitting with feelings, and he said basically that at some point you get to a point where there's nothing to feel anymore. Everything has basically been processed, and then you can basically be a more or less trauma-free version of yourself, and live your true authentic self. And yeah, I think that's a very nice thing to strive for. And at the same time, with those practices of high energy, you don't have to wait 10 years to process everything to be in high energy states. But I think it's a very good thing to get rid of trauma in your life as much as you can, and try and live as freely as possible and as authentically as possible. But let's stop now. Have a great day. Please, I encourage you to do a spiritual practice. It doesn't have to be feeling. It doesn't have to be the no thing of like, saying no to thoughts and then, getting into your body and feelings coming up and all. It doesn't have to be that, but it can be that. And yeah, do whatever appeals to you. But I can only encourage you to do this. It has changed my life in many ways. At some point, I might actually show you like what I'm physically doing, especially with a few of the surrender exercises. There was one surrender exercise in particular that completely changed my life overnight, literally. So yes, have a great day.